Good morning, garden friends, and welcome to Tuesday's tutorials for beginners. Part of the reason why I am doing this, this is going to be low-key, guys, for the simple fact that a lot of this information can be found on the internet, but I do think when you have an opportunity to, hear all the information collectively together, it'll help you get on the right path. And that's one of the things that I want to do. I want to be able to walk you through some key things that are needed when you want to start a garden. And it doesn't matter whether it is a container garden or a full-fledged garden like I have, but it is key to you being successful. Couple things that are so important when you are thinking about doing a garden or starting a garden. What is your zone? What is your first and last frost date? What type of soil do you have? Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, why in the world is all of that stuff important? Because it will determine how successful you will be on your garden journey. So being able to talk to you a little bit about those three key things, I believe is going to be a good way to get you started on a path of gardening. As I stated, a lot of this information can be found on the internet. Knowing your zone does is it allows you to pick the right plants. I wouldn't want to pick a perennial that is ideal for zone 11 and you live in zone 3. There's a good possibility that that plant is not going to survive. So that is one of the importance of knowing your zone. I'll put the link for where you can locate your zone in the description. The next thing is your first and last frost. Now, if you are like me, actually this year was my first time growing flowers from seeds. And I needed to know when my last frost was in order for me to start my seeds inside, and then they in turn would be ready for me to plant outside. So knowing when your first and last frost is so important. The first frost is helping you make sure you are preparing your plants for that frost to be successful, to be able to come up, the following year. So it is crucial to be able to know when that is. I will also link that site where you can find your last and first frost. The other thing is soil type. Like I've said many of times, we've moved down here to Georgia. It'll be 7 years. I knew nothing about this Georgia clay. And like I said before, this Georgia clay don't play, for the simple fact that I had to learn how to amend the soil so that my plants could be successful. Now, mind you, we do have native plants that do grow in the clay. But if you want your plants to just burst, to be vibrant in color, to grow bigger, by amending the soil, it helps that process move along even more so. That too, you got different types of soil. Like I said, we have the clay soil, you have the sandy soil, you got the Neem soil. Up north, you got that beautiful, rich, dark soil that plants can flourish in. But by knowing your soil, a lot of times on the plant tag, it'll tell you, what type of soil this ends up being good for. And when you look at your soil too, you got to look at your alkalinity and your acidity, because that is impacted too by where you end up living. So those are some things and reasons why those three topics are so important. And then what I'm going to do is just get right into the meat and potatoes of what techniques I use, products I use that I am not being sponsored by, but I am a firm believer when you find something that is working, you keep with it. And I want to be able to share those things with you also. Plus, looking at ways to go about building your garden. You know, a lot of times people say, oh, gardening's so expensive. Not if you're smart about it. And what I mean by that is acquiring plants through plant exchange, plant swaps. On Marketplace, individuals are, thinning out their garden, or friends who are thinning out their garden, for you to be able to acquire plants that are already accustomed to, and my particular state, Georgia, and that's how a lot of the plants that I've acquired, is getting out there networking with other gardeners, because gardening is trial and error. My video that I had done in regards to my Texas Vertex for 3 years, that baby was doing what it was supposed to be doing. I don't know what happened this year, to where I ended up having to pull it out. But that's gardening. You can follow all the steps to a T, but there could be something that we are not aware of that ends up impacting it. And it's those types of tips that you end up learning from others. Part of the reason why my channel is called Inspiring Garden Corner, because I want to inspire individuals to go ahead and get their feet wet, or should I say their hands dirty, in gardening, to learn from others. I constantly am learning from different individuals that I cross paths with. And that's how you end up finding the best techniques, the good combinations of plants, just the whole 9 yards of putting you on that path so that you can be successful. So enough about the information that is easily found on the YouTube or Google. Come along with me to my garden shed and let me show you some of the things that I use to help me get started on my garden journey. So come along with me. Okay, so this is where it all happens, inside my garden shed. And as I was stating, there are key things that you need to have in order to start your garden journey. Like I said, a lot of times people say that gardening is expensive. You can be frugal when it comes to starting off with gardening. One of the main things that I would probably, suggest, wish I had this book when I started gardening. And like I said, I am not being sponsored by anyone, but I just believe in sharing the resources that I have found that has allowed me to be successful. And this is this book called The Well-Tended Perennial Garden, The Essential Guide to Planting and Pruning Technique. And this is by Tracy DeSabato August. And let me tell you guys, probably one of the best investments that I made, especially when I started to expand my garden with perennials. Tools that are needed. You don't have to go and purchase brand new tools. You can, because there's many places online that you can get stuff at a reasonable cost. But just some key items that you end up needing. Definitely some gloves. I go through gloves like nobody's business. And because of that, I don't mind paying, like $19 for 6 pairs of gloves. And I prefer the ones that have the texture, like the rubber on the glove part, because, a lot of times if you are in the garden and say it just rained, then you don't have to worry about the cloth getting wet and all muddy and what have you. And then these guys rinse off really good. Now, this is my be-all kit here, okay? I got this off of Amazon. I carry it with me because it makes it a lot easier if I'm not wearing my belt. Part of carrying this is because I keep 2 things with me when I am planting. I utilize this biotone starter plant food, and partly because I follow Laura of Garden Answers, and she raved about the biotone starter food. And one thing that I did find with it, when you transplant flowers or shrubs, they go through like this process of being shocked. I have found that by utilizing the biotone, it does not have that huge of an impact on the plants that gets transplanted. So it truly helps in making them successful. The other thing is my Neem oil. As I'm doing, whether I'm planting, watering, weeding, it's usually 2-fold, 3-fold. That if I end up seeing aphids, I'll go ahead and use the Neem oil to make sure that they don't get out of control. Other tools that I end up using, this here. This is a soil tester, and this sort of goes in line with your first and last frost, preferably your last frost, so that you can test the soil to make sure that it is, at least 55, 60 degrees that soil is before you start planting. Another thing is, I love this thing. I call it a fork, because what it does is, usually when you use like the scoop, get the scoop. Let me show you the scoop. When you use the scoop, you're getting like big clumps. When I use this, it's almost like a cultivator, to where it is, helps agitate the soil, and then it makes it real easy for you to, dig your hole, mix up, the compost or soil conditioner as you are amending your soil. This other one, which I think is fantastic, when I am planting bulbs, if I, let me rephrase that. Before I got my auger, I love this because it has the measurements for how deep that you can stick this in the ground for planting bulbs. And I think you can use it too for planting plants, but I tend to use this more towards when I'm planting bulbs. And then you got your little, I use this for like weeds. Like if I want to get down and get some weeds that have a long root, this actually works fantastic for it. And then of course, your pruning shears. One of the things, like I said, I don't spend a lot on my tools because I take care of them. You can go ahead and get the less expensive ones, but just make sure that you are cleaning them, you are oiling them. And then the other thing that I do to keep the blades sharp is, after I get done cleaning them, I have like a bucket or a little basket that I keep sand in, and then I just stick these guys down in the sand. And what that does is it helps keep the blade nice and sharp. Like I said, there are many things that you can get online to get yourself started. Start off small. A lot of it too is determining the amount of time that you have to invest in gardening, because that's what it is. It's an investment of your time, an investment of your resources, investment of you being able to sit back and enjoy, your hard work. Like I stated, when I started, it was containers. I worked with containers. Some people feel that containers are a little bit more time consuming, and they are if you hand water. And that's what I do. I still do that to this day. Now, if you make that investment in a drip system for your containers, it makes it a whole lot easier for you. But, I like to be able to go out and look at my flowers, deadhead water, and then if there's any weeds, be able to stay on top of it. All right, this is what I was talking about, what I do with all of my pruning shears and scissors. Like I said, it's just sand that I keep in there, and after I clean them, just stick them in there, and they keep them very nice and sharp. And then other tools that I end up using. Like I said, you do not have to spend a lot of money on tools because these tools here are probably a good 15 years old. If you take care of your tools, they will last forever. The only thing that is new is actually the bull rake back there, because my other one ended up breaking on me and we could not fix it. But yeah, it is all about taking care of your tools, and a lot of these I got from tag sales or garage sales or even on Marketplace. Like I said, it can be very cost efficient for you if you're patient and willing to, go out there and find the tools that are needed. And to me, that allows me to be able to spend money on more plants because I'm being frugal with the possibly high-priced items to where I can get more plants. So, like I said, this was going to be short and sweet. Next Tuesday, I'm going to be talking about and demonstrating planting up some pots. I'm just going to be freshening up the pot, and I'll show you the combination of the soil that I end up using, necessarily potting soil. Because I have found that when I use topsoil and amend it with the compost and the manure, it gives my plants a good, healthy start. But then too, like I said, I also use the biotone in them. So, all right, well, I will see you next week, as I stated, when I go to plant up my pots. Well, thank you again for visiting Inspiring Garden Corner, and I hope you felt that Tuesday's tutorial was informative. Have a great day.